here in Mayapur Dham, so wonderfully. And we see that all the Prabhuji has have really here, even then he has come here today to bless us. So let's welcome His Grace Rameshwar Prabhu Ji by chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram
Hare Hare. Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So the topic is, I can talk on any topic. You want a Bhagavad Gita class? I can do that. But tell me what the topic is.
You would like to hear about how that Chaitanya Charitamrita printing happened just in 2 months, how devotees were doing it, what was the samadhi and absorption.
But you only have 1 hour.
So maybe today volume 1, tomorrow volume 2.
Okay. Om Vishmadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namade Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nivasesha Shunyavadi Paschatyate Shatarane Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasa Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So I was present when the BBT was created by Srila Prabhupada. I was joined before, but the BBT, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, was created in America by Srila Prabhupada in 1972. And in that book trust, it had 3 trustees and 1 secretary, 4. Chief trustee was Srila Prabhupada. Second trustee was my mentor, Karandar Das. So Prabhupada was in Los Angeles. Karandar was GBC for Los Angeles. I was Sankirtan leader in Los Angeles, but I was Karandar's assistant. Third trustee was in New York, Brooklyn, Bali Mardan Das. Now, BBT was divided half in New York, half in Los Angeles. The half in New York was editing, transcribing, art department. It's hard to explain to anyone of your generation what it was like to prepare books for a printer when there were no computers. This is before computer age. So that's what they were doing. Everything was labor, hand labor. So anyway, that's what they were doing in New York, preparing the new books for sending to the printer or preparing books for reprint. That was in New York. In Los Angeles, California, that was where placing the orders with the printer, publishing, storing books in a warehouse from the printer, arranging to send the books to all the different temples in North America and Canada, and the sales department was writing newsletters to get the devotees in our temples to actually go out and sell Prabhupada books. That part was in Los Angeles, publishing and sales and warehousing, distribution. So I was Prabhupada, Karandar, Bali Mardan, and I was the official BBT secretary. So I worked with Karandar 72 and 73. Then Karandar, for personal reasons, stepped down. So Srila Prabhupada knew I was the only one who had worked with Karundar and knew what he was doing. So Srila Prabhupada asked me, can you do what Karundar does? And I said, I will try. So that was in 74. Then, at the end of 74, Bali Mardan stepped down. So then Srila Prabhupada asked me, can you do what Bali Mardan was doing? So this is the first time I ever said to Prabhupada, no, Srila Prabhupada. I have a full-time job doing what Karundar did. Running ISKCON Press, that's another full-time job. I cannot be two places all at the same time. I can't. I don't have that siddhi. So Prabhupada said, okay, what if we move all of ISKCON Press to Los Angeles where you are? Can you then do it? So that Prabhupada trapped me. It wasn't a trick. It was just, there was no other answer except, I will try, right? So then Prabhupada said, okay, together we will fly to New York in December 74 and present the idea to the ISKCON Press devotees. Prabhupada was so humble. He said, we will present the idea to them and see if they will agree. Now, some people knew Srila Prabhupada as just founder Acharya of ISKCON. The oldest devotees knew Srila Prabhupada as Swamiji. But there was a handful of devotees that had a different perception of Prabhupada. So I'll give you an example. Lord Chaitanya's disciples included Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, the 6 Goswamis. Now, before they revealed themselves, some of them were ministers in Islamic government. Who knew that they were Rupa Goswami, Sanatana? According to Chaitanya Leela, Rupa, Sanatana, and these other Goswamis are actually gopis from Krishna Loka planet coming into the universe to help Lord Chaitanya. But who knew that? Especially when they were not revealing themselves. So this third category of devotees didn't see Prabhupada just as founder Acharya ISKCON or Swamiji. They saw Prabhupada as personal associate of Radha Krishna, but also of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Krishna Loka, who came down into our world and did not reveal himself until pretty much, I would say, 1965, when Prabhupada was 69 years old. And at that age, he had spent a lifetime preparing for the mission of taking Krishna Bhakti, Krishna consciousness, highest Vedanta. How do you take it to every country on the planet Earth? How do you do that? With no money, and by the time you land in America, you're already 70 years old. One person. All the countries in South America, in Central America, all the different states in North America, the different provinces in Canada. And how many countries are there in Europe? So many different countries in Europe. And in Asia, how many countries? How one person is going to take the transcendental knowledge and transcendental sound vibration to every place in the world to make it a household word. Hare Krishna. No one could imagine. People were trying to talk Prabhupada out of even coming to America. Swamiji, if you go, you'll die. You cannot go there. You have no idea. They are militias, chandalas, or lower. And they have no interest in spiritual life. They are all sinful life is what they promote. Anyway, a lifetime in preparation, Srila Prabhupada comes alone from Calcutta on a steamship, not even a passenger ship, a steamship where they gave him one small cabin. On that voyage, Srila Prabhupada suffers 2 heart attacks. Would have killed anyone at the age of 69 or 70, but Krishna kept Srila Prabhupada from leaving his body before he even came to the West. And because the ocean was so turbulent with waves and all kinds of Atlantic Ocean, very bad, Krishna calmed the ocean like it was just a sea, not an ocean. When the captain was interviewed of Jaladuta, he said, I never saw an ocean so calm, practically no waves. From that point when Prabhupada had his heart attacks, no more waves in an ocean? Very mysterious. Krishna helping for Srila Prabhupada to arrive. Okay, so now Srila Prabhupada arrives, he has no money, and he comes into Manhattan. And he comes with a steamer trunk filled with first canto Srimad Bhagavatam in 3 volumes, printed in India. Prabhupada had spent years preparing, collecting, getting those books printed, and putting them in a trunk. So now Prabhupada is in New York and taking his books to bookstores to see if they will pay and buy his books. And one day while he was out at one of the better-known bookstores, he was staying in a one-room, single-room unit. No bath. These single-room units had a bath in one bathroom for everyone in the hallway on that floor. That's who Prabhupada was sharing bath with. Practically speaking, no kitchen. He made his own prasadam on a counter. And anyway, while he was out at the Paragon bookstore trying to get them to buy his books, some I don't know what I would call him, somebody addicted to intoxication and out of his mind, crazy, broke into Prabhupada's little room, stole his typewriter. Prabhupada had finished for the second time translating and commenting on Bhagavad Gita as it is. First time, his family hid it in the 1950s. All that work gone. Now the second time, all that work gone again, stolen. So you have no money, it's bitter cold, you have no followers, you've just been stolen your typewriter and your manuscript. Would any one of us stay in America at 70 years old if that had all happened? No money? Everything stolen? What spiritual quality Prabhupada has to stay and not be disturbed. I mean, he was disturbed, but not disturbed. So, finally, Prabhupada leaves that apartment It's not even an apartment, a single unit, and goes down to an area of New York City called the Bowery. You never heard of that, but that's where people who are addicted to alcohol in the 1960s, that's where they go to either be in the street or be in similar single-room occupancies, and the whole area is filled with people who are just drunkards. But now it's the 1960s, so they're also filled with people taking hallucinogenic drugs, which was very popular in America in the 1960s. That's where Prabhupada goes and decides the people who appear to be healthy materially, they're not so receptive. But I'm going to the people that need me the most. I am going in the mood of Lord Nityananda. I have to find the most fallen. Most fallen. And that's where Prabhupada went. And that's where he made his first followers. And that's where he opened up his first temple. This temple was still in our possession. It's a storefront. You don't know the details of New York streets and avenues, but the address is 26 2nd Avenue. Just a storefront, and the family owns the apartment building with this storefront. And the family became very attached to Prabhupada. So they let him have that storefront, and we never lost it. Even as the movement grew, we kept that storefront. To this day, we have programs there. Anyway, so in this humble beginning, Prabhupada tells he has now a total of 3 temples. One temple, New York. One temple, San Francisco. One temple, Montreal. And he goes to San Francisco and meets 6 devotees that don't know anything about Krishna consciousness. And he empowers them. He sends them to Montreal. He goes there for a couple of weeks to train them and teach them. And then sends them to London, where they convert the Beatles. Biggest cultural phenomena in the whole decade. Everyone in every country was following the Beatles. And these 6 devotees, brand new devotees, they convert the Beatles to Krishna Bhakti. Yeah. Amazing. So Prabhupada puts his power into devotees. And then they go out. They open temples in foreign countries. They don't even speak the language. They open temples in France, in Scandinavia, in all kinds of places. In Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, I mean everywhere. Prabhupada's just taking devotees, giving them his power, and sending them out throughout the world to open temples and to preach. And gradually, Prabhupada says, now I have a number of temples, even has one in Hawaii. So now in America, there's, let's see, Los Angeles, San Francisco, maybe Vancouver, Hawaii, Montreal, New Brindavan, New York, and one in Tucson or something like that. So we had about 8 temples in North America. And Prabhupada says to all of them by letter, I want to establish my ISKCON Press. That was my Guru Maharaj's vision. That Prabhupada had every devotee in the movement going out every day in the streets of these busy cities. France, London, New York, everywhere, San Francisco. all shaved, wearing dhotis, playing kartal and mridanga for 8 hours, marching up and down the city streets. People never saw anything like this. He has them doing it in London, in Paris, in Denmark, in Spain, everywhere. And he is making the prayer we say, Mahaprabhu Kirtani, the Gita, Gita Madhyan Manaso Rashena. Lord Chaitanya, Panchatattva, bring into this universe Krishna and Radha and Balaram in the form of sound. But the sound and Krishna are the same. But the sound and Radha are the same. This is no one ever heard of anything like this. And he's sending out devotees chanting in every city, making Hare Krishna Mahamantra and Hare Krishna household words all over the planet. Amazing. So now he tells the temples in North America, I want to build ISKCON Press because my Guru Maharaj said that your mridanga can be heard for a few blocks, few streets, few avenues. But the Brihat mridanga is the printing press. And what comes out of that can be heard all over the world. So I need to establish ISKCON Press. So he says to all of his temples in North America, about 12, we're going to have a competition. Right now, every temple is rented. 26th Avenue rented, San Francisco, Frederick rented, Los Angeles, La Cienega rented. Every temple pretty much in the world, Montreal, rented. Prabhupada says, I want to own one building as a temple. That's where I will put ISKCON Press, and that's where I will go to establish it and train them and inspire them. So there was this 1-year competition. Everyone, Tamal Krishna, Giri Raj, Hansaduda, Jayananda, Madhuvisa, so many Brahmananda, so many great devotees in this competition. Gorsundar and his wife Govinda Dasi, all the original devotees, Kirtnander and Haigriva New Vrindavan, everyone's trying to raise the money to buy a building for ISKCON Press. And do you know who won that competition? 2 devotees working together. Satsarup, who was at that time Satsarup Dasadikari, and Giriraj Das Brahmachari. They were working together in Boston. They had a rented temple. By the way, these rented temples, Satsarup had a professional job to pay the rent. In San Francisco, Jayananda had a professional job to pay the rent. Every temple, the devotee had to have a professional job just to pay the rent. Before Tamal, it was Dayananda and his wife. They had professional jobs to pay the rent for the Los Angeles temple. Everywhere, that was the system. We had no money. So finally, it's like a 1-year competition. Giriraj's father realizes, my son is committed to this. I want to help him. He gives Giriraj a donation of $10,000 US in 1969. And that becomes, for real estate people, down payment on a funeral hall in Boston. And by the end of the summer of 1969, we owned our first temple in North America. So, Prabhupada now has to buy the press and the binder and the photographic machines and all kinds of typesetting. He had to buy these machines. So everyone who was doing the competition, Tamal Krishna in Los Angeles, Jayananda and Madhuvisa in San Francisco, Hansaduda in Montreal, Brahmananda in New York, Gorsandar in Hawaii, everywhere Prabhupada contacts all of them and says, all the money that you tried to collect for the building of buying a temple, I need you to send it to me right now. They had other plans for that money, but Prabhupada asked for the money. And what did he do when they all surrendered and sent him the money? He bought the first printing press. He bought the first folding machine. He bought the first binding machine. He bought a typesetter. So all this marathon money went to establish the equipment for ISKCON Press. And by 1969, Prabhupada arranges for the devotees who he had sent some devotees in New York City, learn how to work a printing press, go and apprentice yourself at a printer. Learn how to work a folding machine. Go how to work a binding machine. That didn't work out so well, but they tried. And artists. And he called all of them to Boston. And in 1969, the equipment was there, and Prabhupada was coming for December 1969. Of course, they put the printing press on the ground floor. Temple was on the second floor. Devotees were sleeping in the basement. And the artists, they were working in the ice-cold attic. You know, an attic. Anyway, the printing press was so heavy on the ground floor. The floorboards were creaking and creaking. The nails were popping up. It was about to crash into the basement. The whole plan was going to be finished. So this devotee in San Francisco who worked with Jayananda on building Rath Yatra carts and built the canopy, by hand. It goes up and down. He rushed to Boston to install in the basement, they call it lolly columns, big steel columns, to hold up the floor and the weight of the press. He saved the press. Okay, so now Prabhupada arrives in 1969. And that is the beginning of ISKCON Press. And Prabhupada had named all these different temples with different names. Where Kirtananda was, New Vrindavan. Where Tamal was, Madhuvisa was going back and forth between LA and San Francisco, New Dwarka. Where Jayananda was, San Francisco, New Jagannath Puri. Hawaii, I forget the name, New Westin. Anyway, he had different names. So the ISKCON Press greet him. They're so in love with Prabhupada. Prabhupada, what name will you give to us? You shall be called ISKCON Press. And the devotees were expecting a name for one of the Dhams. So Prabhupada explained, because he could see their faces were a little confused. He said, ISKCON Press means the beating heart of ISKCON. And then he looks at a few artists. We only had 3 artists or 4 artists. And he says, and our art department will be the heart of ISKCON Press. So in that way, he started ISKCON Press. And from that humble beginning came Krishna Book, came Nectar of Devotion. Just before we had teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Surya Upanishad, just a few books came out. And so now there was still no Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. There was just ISKCON Press. And it moved to Brooklyn because they outgrew the temple. So Satrup stayed there, Giriraj stayed there, but ISKCON Press moved to a we were renting a house on Henry Street in Brooklyn, and in the warehouse district, about 5-6 streets away, we rented a little warehouse at Tiffany Place, and that's where the new ISKCON Press was. The artists, everything was there. So now they're coming out with Back to Godhead every month, and the printer was in Japan, Dai Nippon. Karandar and Prabhupada flew to Japan to meet Dai Nippon, and they had so much respect for Prabhupada, this elderly sage and sadhu and author, scholar. So Prabhupada negotiated a contract with Dai Nippon with 2 lines of credit, one for books and one for magazines. You may know part of this story. When Krishna book was ready in 1970, Prabhupada wanted Dai Nippon to print the Krishna book. And Dai Nippon said, well, we can't. Every month we print your magazines, and your ISKCON doesn't pay. So after 4 or 5, so many months, you have this debt. And Prabhupada said, but we had a credit line for magazines, but we had a second credit line for books. And Dai Nippon said, you pay off the magazine line, we'll print the book. That we could not do that. So that's when Prabhupada he told them, what if I pay for the Krishna book up front? Will you then print it and sell it, ship it and all that? Oh yes, Swamiji, oh yes. So Prabhupada sends Shyam Sundar, one of his early disciples from San Francisco, to the house of George Harrison of the Beatles. We had never asked the Beatles for any money, ever. And we were afraid if we asked them for something, they'll think we're just like everyone else, just looking for money. So Shamsun said, Prabhupada, we should not do this. And Prabhupada said, do it. You ask George. So you may know this story. Shyam Sundar is very nervous, meets with George in his house, and explains what the Krishna book is. It's going to change the world. It's going to tell the whole world that God's a person, what he looks like, that he has a consort, that God is both male, masculine, and feminine. This is the most amazing, revolutionary book in the history of the world. And he said, and Shamsun says, George, Prabhupada's asking if you'll pay for the first printing. And George has this concerned look, almost like a frown, like, oh no. Everything was going great with the Hare Krishnas for 2 years, 68, 69, and now here it is, 70s, asking for money. And right then, there was an electrical blackout in that neighborhood. And George's house, all the lights went out. So George and Shamsundar are sitting in the dark. And Shamsundar is so nervous. Once the lights come back on, George is going to brush me away. What he didn't realize is that during that darkness, George was asking God, what should I do? And from within, Lord Paramatma told him, do it. Do it. So after maybe 4 minutes or so, the lights come back on. And Shamsundar's like expecting to be thrown out. And George says to him, not only will I do it, but I will even write a forward note so that the whole world sees it's coming from me that they should read this. And that's how we got the Krishna book. So, amazing story, right? So, in this way, Krishna books come to the Western world, And the only way we knew how to sell the Krishna books was you get a big bag. You put 3 on one side, 2 on the other. Brahmachari can hold 5 or 6. They're big books. And you get dropped off in a neighborhood where there's lots of houses, and you knock on doors and hope that someone's home, and then you show them the book and hope you can sell it. And in those days, selling 4 or 5 Krishna books after 8 hours of door-to-door, that was considered tremendous, big book distribution. So this brings us to 1972. Prabhupada is in Los Angeles, and he creates the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust officially. And the publishing, as I said, sales, warehousing is in Los Angeles, and the pre-production is in New York. Now, end of 1972, in Los Angeles, a few devotees and myself decide we're going to try something different, not door-to-door anymore. We're going to try, it's Christmas season, December 22, 23, and Christmas Eve 24. Instead of dropping off devotees with big book bags, we're going to send them to big stores that people go for Christmas shopping. And we'll drop off a devotee with 4 boxes of books. Then we'll drop off at another store 4 boxes of books, and on and on. And we had about 12 book distributors, maybe 12 or 13. And this was the first time we'd ever done this. And I will just tell you my personal story. Around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, all the books and magazines in my 4 boxes were gone. And I was in so much anxiety. I'm calling the temple. I can't get anyone to pick up the phone. This was ISKCON in those days. It's not like someone's sitting at a desk waiting for a phone call. But finally, I get Karundar on the phone, who I'm his assistant. And I'm screaming, crying. Says, please, send your secretary, send anybody. Fill up a trunk with boxes and get them to me. I'm standing in this part of Los Angeles in front of a department store. It was called Zodi's, whatever it was called, in North Hollywood, Hollywood Hills, whatever. And I'm waiting, and he agrees, and I'm waiting. And about 2 hours later, this very nice, mellow, you know the word mellow? Slow-moving, very peaceful devotee named Madhukanta starts driving up 5 miles an hour, waving at me. Oh, hi, Rameshwar, I'm here. At this point, I was ready to kill. Right? So I run up to the driver's window. I tell him, turn the car off. Okay, turn the car off. I grab the keys from the ignition. I'm scowling at him the whole time. I run to the trunk. I open the trunk. I pull out 4 boxes. Right on. And then he's like looking at me like, what's going on? You're so passionate. I throw the keys at him and said, go. So I went back to distributing my next 4 boxes of books. So anyway, this was like I said, before this, door-to-door, 5, 6 Krishna books, maybe if you get $10 a book. So the biggest collector was $60 a day. And now, I know I've got between $400 and $500, which is unbelievable. So it's around 11 o'clock at night. And I'm saying, okay, I'm sure everyone is back in the Sankirtan office waiting for me because I'm the leader of Sankirtan and I haven't come back yet. So even though there's people still shopping on this first night, I get a ride back to the temple. And I run into the Sankirtan office with these we had these bank bags of coins and bills. And I run in, And there's this one devotee with a blackboard with all the devotee names. And I go, oh no. Everyone went to, it's 11 o'clock. Devotees don't stay up at 11 o'clock. So I said, oh, they all went to bed. Oh. And the devotee who was tracking the score said, no, you're the first one back. So I learned a spiritual lesson. When there are souls out there and you can reach them, you don't leave them. That store was going to stay open until midnight, and I could have sold another 100 books. So what a lesson. So now I'm the first one waiting for everyone to trickle back in, and by 1 o'clock in the morning, everyone was back. And we're telling stories. We're looking at all these bags of money, Lakshmi for Krishna. And we don't even want to go to sleep. We're talking like, where can we go next? We can't calm ourselves down. We're in such ecstasy. Now, in the main office of the temple, we're right next door, the Sankirtan. And the next to the main office is Karandar's office. And that night he was sleeping in his office. And he heard this loud noises. So he runs into this Sankirtan. What's going on? And he looks at us. And he looks at the table filled with bags and bags and bags and bags of Lakshmi. Then he realizes what just happened. He says, okay, listen, I'm ordering you. You have to find a way to take rest. You calm yourselves down. You take rest. It's 1:32 in the morning. You're going to get up in 3 hours and start all over again. But do it. And somehow, I can't even remember sleeping, but we found a way to take rest. And we did this for 3 days. That was the first Christmas marathon in ISKCON, of course. And so I write my first letter to Prabhupada, describing it and telling him we sold in these 3 days almost, how was it, 17,000 books and magazines. And, the biggest day for a temple before that was, 100 books? And now we just sold 16,000 in 3 days. Prabhupada sending telegrams all around the world to all the GBC. Did you hear the news? Did you hear the news? So from that, 1973 comes. And I'm writing newsletters and getting devotees to do book distribution, teaching them the arts and everything. And a devotee named Tripurari joins me. And so anyway, now Karanda steps down and I'm pulled away from going on Sankirtan except on the weekends. Terrible. And then Bali Mardan steps down in 74. And Prabhupada wants me to do that. I'm thinking I'll never go back on book distribution. This is crazy. So I fly with Prabhupada, little me, and we fly together to New York. And we present this whole plan to the press devotees. And Prabhupada's humbly saying, would you agree, if it's approved, that we move you to Los Angeles to have everything under one central BBT? And it's Prabhupada. They're all going, whatever you want, Prabhupada. Whatever you say, Prabhupada. Whatever pleases you, Prabhupada. And this is devotees with families and children and everything. So then Prabhupada says, okay, very well. Now, in February of 75, we will present this idea to the GBC at the Mayapur Vrindavan Festival. Prabhupada did not have to present it to anybody. He could have just said it and everyone would have done it. But he waits. February 75, we have our Mayapur Vrindavan Festival. He presents it to the GBC. Whatever you want, Prabhupada. Of course, it's in the minutes. And so now that both of the press and BB publishing is going to be there, Prabhupada says, I am naming Rameshwar now as from secretary to manager to BBT trustee. Okay, so then I'm a BBT trustee, and then we all go to Vrindavan Because what happened in 1975, April, the grand opening of the Sri Sri Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan. Right? So after that temple opening, I rushed back to Los Angeles. And so I'm back in April, and I'm saying, okay, Prabhupada's coming in June. So let's see. I have to buy a building to house all the devotees, and I have to buy or rent a building to set up all the offices, and I got to get airplane tickets and move the whole ISKCON Press with family and children to Los Angeles. They have to all be there by the end of May, and I have to buy all new equipment. We're not shipping any of these old photographic and whatever equipment they had in Brooklyn. We're getting new. All of that was set up by the end of May, and I thought that was a miracle marathon. I'm so puffed up. So then everyone gets settled in. Now, ISKCON Press was producing one hardbound book every 4 months, 3 a year. If they were really good, they could do a book in 3 months and you would get 4 books a year. That was this. So everyone thought in the whole movement, Prabhupada's translating a book every 3 or 4 months. That's what they thought, because that's when the books come out. None of us knew what had actually happened. Sometime in 1973, Srila Prabhupada stopped translating and writing purports to the Srimad Bhagavatam. We had already published the 3rd canto, but in the middle of the 4th canto, he just stops. And instead, he takes 18 months to write 17 books, 400-page books. 18 months, 17 books, 400 pages each, called Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So he finishes in October, November, I think, I forget what, in 1974. And then he goes back to the Srimad Bhagavatam. So I just moved ISKCON Press, and I just had learned that there's 17 books that haven't been published. It's not like Prabhupada's writing a book every 4 months. It's like he's writing a book a month by giving up his sleep, because he's traveling around the world, making devotees, opening temples, organizing the whole growth of the Hare Krishna movement, non-stop, day and night. And he's still finding the time to concentrate to write a book a month for like a year and a half. It's unbelievable. So when I realized that, okay, that's why Prabhupada moved to press. We got to really figure this out. This one book every 3 or 4 months is nonsense. So I met with all the press devotees in the beginning of June, and we said, how do you do the books? Let's go through step by step by step. And if we do this, we do this, we do this, we can reduce it to one book every 2 months. Then I said, wait a minute. What if we have a second assembly line? We'll get more devotees. The same second assembly line, same process, they'll do a book every 2 months. So that means on average, a book a month, right? So in the middle of June, Prabhupada's in Hawaii, and his secretary is calling me up, saying, Rameshwar, Prabhupada is very, very angry at you. Now I think, well, we just moved the whole ISKCON Press, got a new building, got a new offices, got new equipment. What did I do wrong? And I said, why? What did I do? And he said, Prabhupada said you promised that you would print his books. Where are the 17 books? They just got set up. Okay, so that he said, you better be ready, because Prabhupada is calling every GBC and every sannyasi to fly into Los Angeles when he arrives on June 20th. They're all going to be there when he confronts you. That's what the secretary told me. And I'm thinking, okay, let me just digest this. Brahmananda, Gargamuni, Tamal Krishna, Vishnu Jan, Satrup, they're all sannyasis. Rupanuga, Kirtanananda, a few others, and other GBC. They're all flying in to be around Prabhupada when he confronts us. So, okay. So I think it's so brilliant. We're going to tell Prabhupada we're going from one book every 4 months to one book a month. How could Prabhupada not be? I thought that would please him. So we're on this morning walk, Venice Beach, California. And Harikesh, who's like one of the servants, forgets to bring a second tape. So the morning walk conversation is going on and on and on, and the tape is finished before Prabhupada confronts us. So the whole confrontation was not recorded. Thank you, Harikesh. That was ISKCON. We were making mistakes right and left. We're young devotees. Remember, 1975, the oldest devotee was an 8-year devotee, 9-year devotee. Newer devotees were like 5-year devotees. Young people. So anyway, so Prabhupada stops the morning walk. All these sannyasis are behind him in a semicircle. All the dundas, all of GBC. And Prabhupada says, so what is your plan? And I was talking to Prabhupada with the ISKCON Press manager. His name was Radhabalava. And I said, Srila Prabhupada, we have gone from one book every 4 months. We can now do one book a month. At first I said, Prabhupada, each line will do one book every 2 months. So the number 2 was somehow in the air. But then I said, but we're going to have a second line, 2 lines, doing one book every 2 months, so it will average one book a month. I explained that. So Prabhupada's cane is planted in the sand, and he's doing quick math and saying, so you're telling me it will take you 17 months to publish the 17 unpublished books. And in the meanwhile, Prabhupada's thinking, meanwhile, I'm still writing a book a month. By the time you're done, you're still going to be 17 books behind. 17 months to publish the 17 books. Meanwhile, I'll have written another 17 books. So Prabhupada was not, I thought he would be pleased. He was not pleased. He said, no. And you've all heard this, or maybe some of you have heard this. He looks at me very gravely and says, I want all 17 books in 2 months. Not 17 months, 2 months. Now, I had spent weeks planning this, and I said, Prabhupada, the first time I said no to Prabhupada was when he wanted me to manage ISKCON Press in New York. This is the second time. It was like saying no. I said, Prabhupada, that's impossible. And Prabhupada, he has a way of talking to the soul. And the intelligence and mind are trying to catch up. But he's making sound vibrations go into the jiva, the soul. And all devotees that ever spent any amount of time with Prabhupada know this. They've had this experience. And so Prabhupada looked at me and said, impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. And he's staring at me to make sure I got it. So he's just called me the biggest fool rascal in the whole movement. I'm a total fool. And then when he sees that I understood what a fool I am, he lifts up his cane and starts. Meanwhile, all these sannyasis behind Prabhupada are staring at me. Tamal Krishna, Ramananda, Gargamuni, Vishnujan, Rupanuga, Satsarup, Kirtanananda, all of them. They're just staring at me like, now what are you going to do? I could read their minds and their faces. And then Prabhupada started walking, and they all walked with him. And I'm left there with my jaw, trying to get it off the ground. And so I realized my spiritual life is on the line. Do I believe that Prabhupada came from the spiritual world? He's the representative of God? And I'm telling him, and therefore God, this is impossible? Something's impossible? It just, like, it hit me like. So what happened next is I had an image in my thoughts, in my mind, of the whole universe with the heaviest planets that are incalculable in weight, floating in air and space. And I'm saying to myself, I said something's impossible, and this is just one universe. There's uncountable billions of universes, billions of planets, and all of that is just from the Mahatattva. What an idiot I am to have said that. And when I saw this picture of planets floating, I said, there is nothing impossible. Just like Prabhupada said, nothing is impossible. And it was like a revelation. And I tell Radhaballabha, nothing's impossible. It hadn't hit him yet. And I said, we can do this. And he had no idea how. But he agreed, we'll surrender to the order. Because when you surrender to the order of a pure devotee on the highest level of residents of Krishna Loka devotee, when you surrender to his order comes the ability to carry the order out. You have no idea how you're going to get the ability, what the plan's going to be. It's like Lord Brahma. The whole plan for creating the planetary systems and the three modes of nature and all the different templates for 8,400,000 species, that all existed before Brahma appeared on the lotus stem. That was all there, waiting for him. And when he finally surrendered, Krishna provided all the ingredients for species, for planets, for everything, and gave Brahma from within how to do it, where to put everything. And that's what happened to Radhaballabha and me. We surrendered, and I went to college for 1 year. I have no idea what Radhaballabha went. I dropped out of college, like everybody in the 60s drops out of college in America. And when I joined the Hare Krishna movement, I didn't even know what a checkbook was. This was like a hippie era of American history. And now I'm supposed to. So the ideas are they're flooding into our head from a higher source. They're flooding into our heads. We did nothing. All we did is have faith and surrendered. That's all we did. And Krishna and Prabhupada did the rest. Because these ideas could not have come out of 1975. So what, I was a 23-year-old boy when I got this order. 23. With no worldly experience. I never had a job. I went from dropping out of college to moving into the temple. That's why I dropped out of college. So, anyway, we run back up to Prabhupada. We catch up. And we're both so excited, like, we can't believe that we have ideas how to do this, and it's not our ideas. We had that realization, it's not our ideas. which is an amazing experience. When Paramatma is communicating to a devotee and they realize, this is not me, this is messages coming into my intelligence and mind from the highest source. So we were so ecstatic and excited. We run back up to the group and say, Prabhupada, we know we can do it. We can do it. And Prabhupada was expecting that. He just didn't even smile or anything, because he knew we were going to come to that conclusion. So then, I don't know how I had the guts to do this. But I said, but Srila Prabhupada, I have to beg for 3 conditions. Now, you don't go to your spiritual master and say, I have conditions for doing my service. That's not surrender. But I have to ask for these 3 conditions. So, Prabhupada said, what are they? What? So I said, first condition, Prabhupada, I want your blessing that I can send a newsletter to every temple in ISKCON. I will describe the type of service for each part of book production and ask these temples if they have anyone with any of these skills. You loan that devotee to the BBT for 2 months. I want them to give up their talented devotees for 2 months, and then we'll send them right back. Prabhupada said, okay. Now, the second condition. I said, Prabhupada, we have about 4 devotees in our Sanskrit department. They don't know a word of Bengali. They don't know Bengali script. These books are going to have Bengali scripts, Bengali word-for-word meanings into English, then translations, which they won't understand. They have to match. Prabhupada, I want our Sanskrit department to be allowed to go up to your quarters for 1 hour a day. They will ask you their questions. You're going to be in LA for 2-3 weeks. You teach them the Bengali language. The whole language, you teach them in 2-3 weeks. And they'll spend an hour every morning with you. And Prabhupada said, all right. Then the third condition. Prabhupada always thought that using telephone was Maya. It was a guarantee for prajalpa. You know the word prajalpa? Meaningless talk. Talk about sports, talk about politics, talk about worldly matters. And he said, that's what happens when 2 people get on the phone. He never liked the phone. I said, Prabhupada, the third condition. One of the reasons what's taking so long is we read the manuscript, we discuss it with the artists, we decide which sections of a book we can paint. Then they're going to have all kinds of questions. What does this personality look like? What do they wear? All kinds of questions. Life on other planets or life in the medieval times in India. We had no idea what anything looked like. So you would write a letter to Prabhupada after you did all that homework. 10 days, but between the homework and the letter, 10 days pass and Prabhupada gets the letter. Then the secretary reads it to Prabhupada, immediately gives the answers. Prabhupada was unlike a person who gets the most letters asking questions about different planets in the universe. Anyone else in the world, even Vedic scholar, I'll get back to you. And they go and I'll look it up and blah, blah, blah. Prabhupada didn't have to do that. Instantly, whatever the question, he gave the answer perfectly. Perfect descriptions, perfect knowledge of the whole universe, of histories, past, present, future. You have no idea that Prabhupada is a super genius, not human. No demigod could even know all this. It's amazing how Prabhupada answered these questions. Okay, so we would answer the question, and the secretary would type them up, eventually go to a post office and mail them back. Another 10 days. So 20 days have elapsed where the artists haven't even started painting yet. And that was part of the reason for the slowdowns. So I said, Prabhupada, what I'm asking is that I call your secretary, your traveling secretary, with the questions. While you're in LA, I'll go up every morning and give you the questions. But when you start traveling, I will call your secretary on the phone. He will not hang up. I will not hang up. I'll be holding on while he runs into your room. And even if you're meeting with some people or whatever you might be doing, he's going to whisper in your ear, Prabhupada, Rameshwar's on the phone, here are the questions. He needs the answers right now. Prabhupada agreed to this. I couldn't believe he agreed to it. He agreed to be interrupted throughout every day of the final, let's say, it's an 8-week marathon. So maybe the final 6 weeks of Prabhupada's traveling. He agreed to this. He would answer the questions. The secretary would scribble down the answers. No letters. He would run back to the phone. I'm waiting, like dying. Come on, come on. And he would tell me the answers, and I'd scribble the answers and run back to the art department. And that was the third condition. And then I did some math, and I realized 17 books. We paint. We have one photo of Prabhupada, and there's always 8 color plates. That means 7 paintings per book times 17 is 17 times 7. Anybody? Come on, you're all smart people. How much? I can't hear you. You got to yell.
119.
119? That's how many paintings I need in 2 months. Not possible, right? So I said, Prabhupada, because it's Chaitanya Leela, what if I sent one devotee photographer to India? And he runs all over South India and Bengal and Bangladesh, and I don't even know if it was Bangladesh in 1975. And of course, Vrindavan, and he takes photographs of anything to do with any Leela in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Radha and I will read all 17 books. We'll stay up. We stayed up for 3 days and nights reading. And we gave this photographer, this is what we want. And he figured out how to go to India, travel everywhere, get rolls of film, and he figured out how to set up a labeling system so that for this roll, picture number 2 is this, picture number 10 is that, and he would get rolls and rolls of film back from. And in that way, some of the Chaitanya Charitamrita volumes had 3 photographs and 4 paintings. Some had 2 photographs and 5 paintings. It was balanced. That's how we could do it all in 17 books in 2 months. So Prabhupada liked that idea. And this devotee's name was Bhargava, this photographer, who made this possible. So I have to tell you another story. We set up the art department like an assembly line. And for artists, they hate that. They did the Krishna book like that, and they started Bhagavad Gita paintings like that. But assembly line means one person does the composition, then it goes to the next person, and they do the detail, color, and this and that. And then the final person puts in, actually he does the highlights and the depths and everything. And it's an assembly line. Well, artists at this point in our movement did not want anyone painting on their painting. And I nearly got killed over this. That's another story. But one day our Harinam party is at Venice Beach, walking, chanting up and down the ocean walk. And a stout devotee, not a devotee, a stout man comes walking towards them from from the beach, from the ocean. And he's so interested, and they start talking to him, and he wants to join the kirtan. He loves this idea of chanting mantras. And in the course of asking him, well, what do you do? Because he's like around 35, 40 years old. That's considered by us very old. I'm 23. This is an old man already. And he said, well, I'm an artist. What do you mean you're an artist? I do landscapes with a spatula, and I can do a landscape in like a full landscape with leaves, details in 3 hours. And they said no. Okay, so they bring him back to the temple, and one of the devotees runs up to get me and says, "You got to meet this Hector. He claims he can do this and this and this." So I run down and meet with him because I was trying to collect artists from all over the movement. Hector describes to me a type of art that I've seen on TV, where an artist can do a whole painting in one half hour or an hour. I say, okay, you're going to come with me to the art department. You have to show me. I gather all the artists around. Give them a canvas. Show me how you do trees and shrubs and flowers, and show me a landscape. Within 20 minutes, he did the most detailed landscape that we had ever done. And the devotees are, oh my Krishna. Everyone wanted Hector for their painting. And he became part of this amazing assembly line. So later in the marathon, when we're finally getting maybe an hour or two of sleep a night, we're finally able to reflect on what's going on. It seemed to all of us, where did this guy come from? The devotees see him walking from the ocean towards the kirtan party. How did he get there? It literally looked like he came out of the ocean to join our art department. So that was very mystical, but true. This is a true story. So anyway, what are some of the other challenges in this marathon? We could no longer print with Dai Nippon because they're in Japan. The Arab countries had their famous oil embargo in the mid-70s, early 70s. The price of oil had gone way up. That was their leverage on the Western world. And Japan was dependent on lumber being shipped in and then the products being shipped out. That's 2 times shipping at the higher inflated prices of oil. We could not afford it. Prabhupada wasn't happy because Dai Nippon had been very loyal. But I said, Prabhupada, we can't wait the shipping time, there goes the marathon, and we can't afford it. So I said, I have to find a printer here in America. And I interviewed 3 printers, the biggest printers in America, and every major printer in America is booked up for 6 months or more. Or they may have 12 presses, they may have 15 presses, they may have 7 presses. But they're booked up from the biggest publishing houses in America and the most famous best-selling authors of America. It's all on a schedule. So I'm calling up these printers and saying what we have to do, and they calculate, you're going to need at least 3 presses. We don't have that to give you. And then one president of a printer in Tennessee, state in America, Tennessee, the name of the printer was Kingsport Press. I'm explaining this to him on the phone. And Paramatma is explaining it to him inside. And he starts listening very carefully. And I say, when we're done with this, you have no idea how many First of all, 17 titles, 20,000. I had asked Prabhupada, do we do 5,000 each? No, 20,000 each. So I'm telling him, we're doing 20,000 each of 17 volumes, and I need them in 2 months. And once that's done, I'll start giving you orders, 500,000 of this. And then a year later, I gave him, I'll give you the Bhagavad Gita, 1 million at one time print. You have no idea how much business we're going to give you, but you have to do this for us. So he starts calling up the biggest publishers in America and the agents of the biggest best-selling authors in America, and somehow he's explaining to them there will be a 2-month delay on your schedule. This doesn't happen. He doesn't even know us, and we're the Hare Krishnas. And he postpones regular clients and customers and the biggest publishing houses because Krishna in his heart is telling him, yeah, do this, trust him. And he did it. It was unbelievable. So then he says, okay, I'm going to need a lot of money up front because we have to buy a whole trainload of paper. And everything just starts falling into place. I have never worked. With Dynapon, we would send them the book and they would do everything. With Kingsport Press, never printed our books. Radha Ballava and I would have to take turns flying there for each of the 3 or 4 presses to look at the color to make sure they didn't screw it up. And Radha Ballava and I would, once a week he was there, once a week I was there, and back and forth. And so we're meeting everyone at Kingsport Press, and it's hitting us at the end of the marathon what they did for us. They canceled really renowned best-selling authors and the biggest powerful publishing companies in America to make room for Prabhupada's books. 17 volumes. Amazing. It's truly a miracle. Just like Hector was a miracle coming out from the ocean. This was a miracle for a printer that had never done business with us to have that much trust because Krishna's telling him and to do all of this for us. So there's a bunch of other stories like that. But this gives you an idea of everything was a miracle. Bhargava's photographs are coming in. We were deciphering his system for figuring out what's on this roll of film, what's on that roll of film. And basically, we gave all the press devotees in this whole marathon 1 day off. In June or in July, I forget, there was the San Francisco Rath Yatra. I rented buses. They all got on the buses. They went to the Rath Yatra festival because Prabhupada was going to go there. And then they got bussed right back to start again. That was the only day off for the press devotees. But I didn't go and Radha Ballava didn't go. We were still too busy. And what happened with our temple president, a devotee named Tulsi Das, this mood was so infectious, so ecstatic, so amazing. Tulsi realized there's no way they can do this without our help. How can a temple help the press? Well, they can bring us the prasad. They can bring all the devotees the prasadam all throughout morning, afternoon, in case anyone needs evening. They can do everyone's laundry. They can do all the cleaning at midnight. They can help buy toiletries. I mean, the LA temple stopped to do the backup for these 70 devotees at ISKCON Press who aren't sleeping and wouldn't be eating if it wasn't for that. So it was LA temple had about 500 devotees. So it was a huge effort to pull this off. And everyone deserves oceans and oceans of credit because they sacrificed everything. And when the final book was coming out of the printer, I sent a Western Union telegram. There was no cell phone. There was no email. So I sent a Western Union telegram to Prabhupada. It is done. I still have the telegram, of course. Every time I wrote to Prabhupada, I kept a copy of the letter that I wrote. And of course, I got his original. Anyway, so about the fourth week into the marathon, the first 5 books with jacket covers, end papers, everything are ready. They have flown to LA airport. 5 books. Radha Ballava and I, we weren't sleeping, so we just get in the car, we go to the LA airport, and we get these boxes of advanced copies. Then we get back to the temple. It's around maybe 3:30, maybe 4 o'clock. So the pujaris are dressing the deities for Mangal Arti. And Radha Ballava and I wash our hands, and they allowed us on the altars. We had 3 altars, 1 pujari for each altar, and we placed the books on the shelves. 3 at the bottom and 2 above. 5 books. The first 5 books of the 17. It's about the 3rd week or 4th week of the marathon, somewhere in there. So that way, they were being offered to the deities and Prabhupada. And when the Mangal Arti begins and those deity doors open, I got 500 devotees in that temple room. They're staring at these books. And they were deities, those books. And everyone's holding their head. And the Mangal Arti Kirtan starts. And everyone is jumping and screaming the holy names and the Mangal Arti Guru Vastikam prayers, and just, it was insane joy, such bliss. Devotees were jumping so much, their feet were practically not touching the ground of the temple. And this went on for 45 minutes. Devotees couldn't stop because they're realizing what Prabhupada said to all of us in the movement: nothing is impossible. They're seeing it with their eyes. Right? They're seeing it. And this was the most ecstatic Mangal Arti that anyone in that temple room ever had, before or after. There was never a Mangal Arti like this in all of ISKCON. So, let's see if anyone has any comments or questions, because it's overtime. And thank you for hearing like the tip of this marathon. So does anyone have any questions? You have a mic, right? Anyone? If you have a question, you should raise your hand. And if you don't have a question, don't raise your hand. Look, that nice devotee has a question. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the very wonderful lecture. Your lecture has been a lot.
It's not a lecture.
Sorry, Prabhupada. We really get to know each and everything in detail, and it really makes us very proud and joyful that the thing that we are connected to is gone. It has come and struggled a lot, and all the struggle that you have shared has really touched our heart. One question I'd like to ask you is, what is one thing that you would like to share to all the new devotees who are joining ISKCON, who are very beginners, to any one thing that they should follow to make this ISKCON movement wonderful, to grow it more and more and more? Any one thing?
Thank you for that question. I would say, from my own life, that the first day that I moved into the temple, the very first, I moved in at night. I had gone to the college, withdrawn. It was going to be the start of my second year. I took all my possessions, put them on a long, picnic table, spent the day at the college campus selling everything I owned. And I show up that night at the temple, Portland Temple, in the state of Oregon. And the devotee who had made me a devotee, he is the devotee that is an unbelievable sculptor. He sculpts presidents, but he is the devotee that has sculpted all the Srila Prabhupada murtis throughout all of ISKCON. This devotee's name is Lochan Prabhu, and he made me a devotee, and he is my first mentor, and Karunda was my second. So I knock on his door, the temple door. I've never been to the temple. I just been going out on Harinam with them. So I knock on the door. It's around 8:30 at night. Everyone's asleep, and he opens the door, and there I am, Bhakta Bob. And he's looking at me like, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm begging you, can I join you and move into your ashram? And I hand him an envelope with all the Lakshmi from everything I ever owned that I had sold, paid for the rent about 3-4 months, and he let me in that night. And the next morning was the first time I ever chanted japa. And that day was the day that Krishna made a decision, Paramatma made a decision to let me know that Krishna is a person in his name. Radha is a person in her name. When you say their names, they are right. You're right in front of them. You're associating with them. It was unbelievable, this realization I had. And then I had the realization, how could this be except that Prabhupada is from their kingdom? I hadn't even read a Bhagavatam yet. I just read it back to God. I can't even remember. I just was listening to Lochan convince me about chanting and kirtan. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that for new devotees, you can describe Prabhupada in different ways. You can say he's a sadhana siddhi. You can say that. You can say he's a great guru in a long line of gurus. You can say that. You can say he's even a Jagat Guru, Guru of the world. Although Jagat could also mean much more than this earth, right? Or you can say what I say. This is one of those souls that comes down from the spiritual kingdom. The way you Christians believe Jesus was sent down, Prabhupada was sent here to take God consciousness, the science, and bring it to the whole world. And he did that, starting at the age of 70 with no money, no followers, one person who carried God inside him. That's who you're going to be reading his books and feeling his presence. And you're associating with him when you read his books. And he's going to be speaking personally right to you on every page. And you are going to feel what it's like to be with Prabhupada. You join this movement and he will put powers in you that you can spread this throughout the whole world. You can save people everywhere. He will do that for any one of you who just wants to be serious about becoming God realized. That's how I preach to people. And when they join, I watch over them a little bit to make sure that they're having that experience. If they're not, I'm reminding them about it all the time. Prabhupada is not a regular human who became a perfect yogi or a perfect guru. He was sent by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was sent into our world to free it from impersonalism and voidism and teach people the real science of being God conscious. And because I believe it and know it, when I talk to people like that, they start thinking, yeah, okay, I guess that's who he is. I'm telling them I've experienced that it's who he is. I'll tell you one more last quick story. When we bought our temple in Manhattan in 1976, it was like a 11, 12-story building. So Prabhupada had gone from the Lower Bowery to Brooklyn to now the grand opening of this Manhattan Upper West Side temple. Gorgeous temple. And he had flown in for the LA Rath Yatra. The New York Rath Yatra on 5th Avenue. From where he began to that visit, it was like unbelievable triumph for Prabhupada. Look at what Krishna has done. So anyway, we had a news reporter from the New York Times religion department. She came and interviewed Prabhupada, and I was in the room with her and Prabhupada. And she's very skeptical. So you're saying that you hear God, you can see God, God speaks to you? Like, there's no way she's going to believe that. Right? So before Prabhupada could explain it to her any more than he already had, I jump in. I had that bad quality, jumping in. And I said to her, in the Bhagavad Gita, God himself says, for those who are devoted and worship me with love, I give them the intelligence by which they come to me. And Prabhupada's looking at me and says, goes like this, that is not it. Now, I loved when Prabhupada corrected me and chastised me and yelled at me. It was it's part of my relationship with Prabhupada. So the reporter is looking at Prabhupada. What do you mean that's not it? You mean you actually do speak to God and God speaks back? And Prabhupada gives her one of these, yes. And Lord Paramatma inside her was telling her, yes. And what happened is, this reporter changed right in front of my eyes, from the biggest skeptic to the realization that she's in the presence, not of a saint, not of a prophet, but of an avatar. She became so reverential. And it just happened instantly. And from that moment on till the interview ended, Prabhupada is injecting Bhagavad philosophy, Bhagavad knowledge into her brain and intelligence and heart. And she's receiving it. Not skeptically, but she's like us. I can't believe this is happening to me. I can't believe I found this. So, that realization that she had, that realization that I had of who Prabhupada is, we give that to the devotees, and they become fully surrendered and empowered. And Prabhupada lets them be his ambassadors. And for thousands of years, he will be the founder acharya of the worldwide Hare Krishna movement. And he will be for thousands of years. Everyone's Siksha Guru. You will all have Diksha Gurus. But Prabhupada will always be your Siksha Guru. That's how I would answer that question. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm really shivering from that. I don't have any words to describe whatever the thing that you have said to us. It's really a blessing that we are in Mayapur now hearing Prabhupada's story. And that story really connects us. And I believe that all of us will literally watch this recorded session again and again to be showing the moment that we are living right now. A golden thank you.
You know what the secret is? Really amazing japa. Attentive japa where you're praying to Krishna. He's non-different from the word Krishna. You're praying to Radha. She's non-different from the word Hare. Ram, Balaram. He's non-different. You're chanting your japa and they are with you. They're in front of you. You can speak to them. You can pray to them. Please, I want to surrender myself. I want to be my Guru's servant. I want to be the Parampara's servant. I want to be your servant. Please accept me. If you chant your japa with that in your head, you will be so quickly empowered. Krishna will be so pleased, and he will start giving you wondrous realizations. I promise. It's guaranteed. Hare Krishna. So we have to let your group go. Hare Krishna. Hare
Krishna. We can see how much love he has for Srila Prabhupada. And after so many years, now, since 70s, now we are after 50 years or so, still each and every day.
In Srila Prabhupada Dinamrit. But many of the details which were shared by Prabhuji are not there in the book. Actually. So it's a very unique lecture. Very, very unique. So many details. Because he was there actually. So, and Srila Prabhupada once said that all those devotees who have directly or indirectly contributed in the printing of Chaitanya Charitamrita, I will personally take them back home, back to God.
Only when Prabhupada is finished with us in this universe. We don't have that as our main goal. We are limbs and arms and instruments and puppets of Prabhupada. If he wants us to continue preaching, he'll give us many births if that's what he wants, and somehow we will accept it. As long as we remember him in each birth, then you begin where you left off, like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So that's our connection to Prabhupada. Wherever you send us, as long as we can remember you and have our connection and begin there.
So Prabhuji has just confessed that he's an associate of Srila Prabhupada. As Lord Krishna told Arjuna in Adi Puran, that those who claim to be my devotees, they are not my devotees, but those who are devotees of my devotees, they are my real devotees. And here we have devotees of Srila Prabhupada, who is a devotee of Krishna. So here is the real devotee of Krishna. Gratitude and a powerful shawl you would like to offer to Prabhuji. Please kindly accept it, Prabhuji.
You know, I can't respond because you keep talking.